What is going on, Movie Meals? Movie Meals, we're back with the podcast. We've just been busy bees, as per usual. But we're here. We got a lot of stuff on the docket. We'll kind of rattle through. I'm looking at the list, Kyle, you sent. I say we start from the the bottom up. Let's do that.
Okay.
Because I have a feeling I'll rattle through most of these. What do you mean? You're the notes guy. This is your shindig,
list.
pal.
I don't have the actual list.
Pink Panther reboot.
Oh.
Wait, before we get into it, thank you to Moonmill patrons, Kimberly and Karen. Go get some merch. I'll link down in the description. We got Fast X review. We got everything out that you would love to go check out. But now we're going to talk Pink Panther. Kyle, what are your thoughts on the Pink Panther?
You rattled off all of that as fast as...
Vin Diesel drives a car.
Vin Diesel drives a car, yeah. God, that movie. Anyway, so yeah, we want to talk Pink Panther. Yeah, Eddie Murphy it's been announced that Eddie Murphy is cast in a new rendition of the Pink Panther movie. It says that he's going to be playing Inspector Clouseau, which that makes sense. If you get Eddie Murphy as the big star, the big comedic star, he's probably going to play Inspector Clouseau. But that's all there is to it. Alex, I don't know if you have any love for any of the Pink Panther movies. I mean, I guess I know that you really like the Steve Martin ones. I don't know about the originals or anything, but do you feel the need for a Pink Panther movie? Do you think it's a good fit for Eddie Murphy to be doing this? What do you think?
I like the Steve Martin ones a lot growing up. I liked the old cartoon movies for a little bit growing up. I hope this movie doesn't go down a trend of where we reboot old comedies and they're just horrifically bad and we get some comedy that actually works again because we are lacking in it. If Eddie Murphy wants to do it, sounds great. That's all I care about. Don't really have any more thoughts. Don't really care that much.
No. When I was younger, I only grew up with the Peter Sellers Pink Panther movies. My family loved all of those growing up. So when we saw that the Steve Martin one came around, unlike most people our age who really like those movies, I was one of the few that was like, no, the originals are better. And everyone was like, shut up, Kyle. And then they gave me a wedgie or something. No. If anything, I have plenty of taste.
You don't even like Fast and Furious. Oh, wait, no, he's a film auteur now. That's what we've learned about Kyle. He's now a film auteur.
Oof, there's no auteurism when it comes to the Fast and Furious movies, that's for sure. But yeah, anyway, for my love for the original movies, I don't really have any interest in a new Pink Panther movie, even if Eddie Murphy is in it. Sounds like it's going to be a good paycheck for him, so have at it. Why not get the bag? So that's about all I have to say. We'll hear about more details, but even when this movie comes out, I'm probably not going to have a desire to see it. I'm pretty good with the originals.
All right, I'm going to move this topic to the next one. Jackie Chan in a Karate Kid movie, again, is what Kyle wrote in the notes. I could not give a rat's boo-hootie about this unless it's somehow involved with Cobra Kai. I do not care. I love Jackie Chan. Do not care. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, who doesn't love Jackie Chan? I just have no idea what this Karate Kid movie is going to be. Like, you hear that Jackie Chan is going to be coming to another movie after he was in the Jaden Smith one many years ago, so it's like, wait, is he a character that shows up, but he's going to be training like a different Karate Kid? Or is it somehow a sequel and they're going to get Jaden Smith back? They're just still negotiating him. It just makes me more confused on whether this has anything to do with Cobra Kai or not. Look, these are the topics. We got to discuss them, Al. But I don't know. That's just the confusion that I have behind it. But I'm not against Jackie Chan being involved in movies again. It's been a while since I've seen him. So, yeah. Totally fine with that.
Jackie Chan, if they go off Cobra Kai and it's all part of this big tournament that's going to happen or something, and they figure something out, which I know is not going to happen, but if they figure something out where he's like another master and whatever, that's fine. But like, who cares?
Like a new character.
Go watch the real Karate Kid movies and go watch Cobra Kai. They're way better. The Jaden Smith movie is horrible. All right. Let's move on to Jeff Loveness off Kang Dynasty movie. Get out of here. We're moving to Disney. Kevin Feige came in and said, I'm over these bad films. Leave. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, that about checks out. I echo those same thoughts. And that's probably a good thing, too. I think even people that had a soft spot for this third Ant-Man movie probably will agree that it's not, like, the best one out of them all. So, and the major cause of that is because of the writing in the story. I think the story was just weak. I think the writing in it was weak. So it probably makes sense not to have the weakest aspect of one movie be a part of something as major as another Avengers movie. So I think the right call was made, and with the writer's strike happening, they might just hopefully take time to find a better suitor for this project, and once it ends, hopefully they can be able to start crafting a really good story out of Avengers Kang Dynasty.
Is there any rumor or report on why he's off the project?
Real quick, I don't know. I don't see you right now.
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm just getting a note
then
saying...
answer my question.
Okay, I'm just letting you know.
I'll come back. I always do.
Well, the report is from Jeff Snyder. From what I remember him saying, he just has only been hearing that he's off the project, but I don't believe he gave a reason why. So I would just assume that they realized that people didn't like Ant-Man the Wasp, so they shouldn't trust him to make an Avengers movie, or to write an Avengers movie.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be that he's striking. And they were like, we don't like the base script or the spec script that you have already written. And so if you're going to strike, then we're not going to hire you. We've already heard that companies have been saying with the writer's strike, you need to continue to work for us. You have other duties, even though that's just blatantly untrue. Maybe they think an AI script will be better. I've been rewatching How I Met Your Mother, and I can tell you right now that an AI script will not give you quality writing. I'm watching quality writing every day at the TV level at a great sitcom, and they just won't. AI is not that creative. Fun fact of the day. So it could be a lot of reasons. Yes. I think jumping to his script was horrible because I didn't like Ant-Man. It seems a little too far-fetched, probably, but it's like it could be a variety of reasons. It could be creative differences. It could be that he's striking and Disney said, get out of town. We don't want people who strike. We want people that work for $2 an hour and no residuals. So, who knows? It feels to me like Marvel is back because of Guardians. Everybody kind of seems more positive about Marvel. It's a what have you done for me lately? We'll see what happens. I'm curious what a new Avengers movie will be. More curious to see what happens with Kang. I heard rumors that Jonathan Majors was dropped as Kang last night, and then I couldn't find any actual evidence around that. But who knows? Anyway, Jeff, I hope you continue to get work because you're a writer in Hollywood and you deserve to be paid. That's at the end of the day, go write something and you should hopefully get paid for it. But anything else, Kyle, or you want to move on?
No, just we'll find out who the writer is later, but I think we covered that.
All right, moving on to more Disney. Dave Filoni, our king, is making Heir to the Empire. I've read Heir to the Empire. It's phenomenal.
Hold on. That's the rumor, and it's a rumor coming from. Oh, okay, you made it. Okay, I heard it differently then.
You didn't let me finish. Yeah, okay, no, Dave Filoni, our king, is apparently making Heir to the Empire. Or at least that's the rumor that the title is of his film. Okay, I've read Heir to the Empire. It's a phenomenal book. It is one of the better Star Wars books. It has some things I don't like in it, though, that I would hate if they brought into canon of Star Wars. If that is the name of the movie, great. It's a phenomenal name. Heir to the Empire. Like, just as a title. It's a great title. Phantom Menace is a bad movie, but that is a wonderful title. The Phantom Menace. You kidding me? That's amazing. Look, if Dave Filoni wants to make Heir to the Empire, and if he wants to bring elements from the story into it, that's fine. I really hope Luke is not a major player in his movie and we don't continue to do this trend with Mark Hamill and have this young guy that kind of looks like him come in. I'm kind of to the point that I'd rather them recast or just not do any more stuff with Luke. If they do it in little tidbits like in Mando, that's fine. But I don't want big epic battles with Luke and stuff. I think we can leave that alone. If he's making Heir to the Empire as the working title, that's great. It came from nobody tweeting nobody. So apparently every time I see this same guy that apparently broke this, it's like he's broken big scoops before, and it's like doesn't this guy have 400 tweets a day and he just kind of keeps guessing things and then he's like, look at me, I'm right, when he's right. Like, anyway, I'm assuming, Kyle, do you have any thoughts on this, or are you fine?
As soon as I read that it came from a Twitter handle called My Time to Shine Hello, I immediately checked out of the topic. But I was just curious to hear from you. You're obviously the big Star Wars fan. You know what Heir to the Empire is. I don't know like what the story is at all. So can you like give me a little clue if it does ever happen of like what it is? So maybe I would be a little interested. If it became true.
It's where Thrawn comes from. Thrawn is a character from Heir to the Empire, and it really focuses on Thrawn's rise to power, and it follows Luke, and it introduces new characters. Luke meets a woman named Mara Jade, who is a Force user, and kind of goes back and forth with which side of the pendulum is she going to be on. They fall in love. They have children. Luke and or Leia and Han have kids. Ben Solo ain't one of them. And so it just kind of follows that storyline of, and I believe it's a trilogy of books. I've only read the first book, but it, yeah, it's really good. But that's kind of the base story. It's just, it continues with relationships. It's Luke more at the height of his power, which is cool to see, but when you don't have, I mean, if you use Luke Skywalker, great, but even if Dave made it, he has a bunch of characters that are not in Heir to the Empire. Ahsoka's not in Heir to the Empire. Sabine, like literally the whole cast is not in Heir to the Empire except Thrawn. So it is, you know, I think it could be I think that's a great title. If they're going to pull a few things from the book, maybe we do introduce Mara Jade. She'd be a great character. She doesn't necessarily have to have a relationship with Luke, but I think that would be great stuff. I trust Dave Filoni to make this a good movie, at least a good Star Wars movie. Whether it's a good movie and the masses love it or not, it'll be a good Star Wars movie, and the deep-hearted fans will probably end up loving it because Dave knows how to cater to them. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Then we'll just... It probably isn't going to happen, but we'll see what becomes of that.
I mean, at the very least, it will just be the title. That's what it'll be. It'll be the title. It's a great title. All right, let's talk about Indiana Jones 5. Apparently, it's getting mixed reviews. They just had their like big premiere thingy-majig, and everyone was hugging each other, and they were like, "Oh my God, Harrison!" I saw clips everywhere. Harrison Ford hugs him. Bob Iger's hugging this guy. Everybody's hugging everybody, and I was like, "I want a hug. Hug sounds wonderful." It currently has a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. I saw some critics, I was just saying to Kyle this off air, I saw some critics talking about, like, oh, this is why you shouldn't release movies early unless you know they're phenomenal. It's at like a 40%, 50%, and it's out of 14 reviews. It's currently at 52 with 24. I know that eventually this movie will have 300 reviews, and that's when I'm going to take the tomato score a little bit more seriously. It's 52 is also not that far from a fresh rating, so let's just wait and see. But what are your thoughts here, Kyle?
I don't like what I hear so far. I just the majority of those who disliked this movie or gave it a bad review basically chalked it up to saying like, hey, it doesn't have the adventurous spirit or the as it doesn't have that as much as like what Spielberg was able to do with the past movies. Even Crystal of the Skull, I saw one review that was like trying to uplift Kingdom of the Crystal Skull because of how bad he thought this one was, which I need to see the movie for myself. But it just wasn't too surprising to me to hear people say it that way, just because it's so hard to replicate like Spielberg's style and his way to like get that adventurous spirit out of Indiana Jones. But I was kind of thinking Mangold could do it a bit better, or at least do it well to where it wouldn't be like what we hear the most out of these reviews, that it doesn't pan out that way. But I'm still going to wait to see it for myself. I don't really like paying attention to Rotten Tomato scores anymore. I just want to experience this for myself, want to see Harrison Ford in this one more time, and hopefully at the very least I'll still be happy to see him in the role, if anything else. So I just wait till it comes out and see for yourself. But it just made a lot of noise when it came to like film critics and the whole film Twitter sphere that we thought that we would share on that.
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull has a 77% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is certified fresh, and it means most people kind of liked it. So, at 52 with 24 critics, and let's see how many critics reviewed Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for that 77%. 308. So, I'd like to wait and see. I like Rotten Tomatoes. They're a conglomerate. They put a bunch of reviews together and say this is kind of where the masses are leaning. I think for 24 reviews, if you're sitting there going, this movie stinks, you're an idiot who needs to pay attention, go see the movie for yourself, touch some grass, leave your bias at the door, and also, like, there's 24 reviews. Like, take a little bit more stock into it when there's 100, you know? Even 60 is better than 24. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You ready to move on?
Yeah, we can do that. Let's just be a bit more patient when it comes to hearing what people have to say about these movies.
So the next thing on the topic you have listed, Disney and HBO does not care about writers. I'd like to expand on that, and I'd say everyone doesn't care about writers in Hollywood. All the major companies don't care. To be honest, I've heard more that Netflix is the biggest issue since the writer's strike has began than either Disney or HBO. So, but Kyle, I'll let you take the reins on this one. What are your thoughts here?
Well, a lot of these major companies have sent out letters or press releases saying to their showrunners, hey, you still are required to do your job when it comes to everything else but the writing process, essentially. And if you are part of the writer's strike, then you're not going to get paid. So it's just adding more stickiness to an already sticky situation that we're facing when it comes to the writer's strike. And I can't imagine just the frustrations that are building when a showrunner sees that letter and they're in a tricky situation of whether to support their writers that are in the showrooms with them, or in the writers' rooms with them, showrooms, or to, show up to work and do everything else and still try to get paid, even though there's many other writers who can't get paid currently and are trying to get more money in doing so. So, it's just something that we should highlight. We need to shed more love and support towards the writers. Even within our reviews, I'm tending to realize that we don't shout out writers enough. At least for myself, I don't feel like I do that, so I'm trying to do that more often moving forward, just because I still want people to be attached to, the making of art and throughout movies and television, and not resort to AI writing films, which will never be the same sort of emotional attachment that you can get to a show or a movie as compared to someone actually writing it. So, yeah, I mean, it just adds more stickiness to an already miserable situation for these people, and I feel for them.
Yeah, obviously the writers are in the right here. All these big companies saying, hey, you have other duties, blah, blah, blah. It's just, if I'm being completely honest, it's just kind of like that's what a big business is going to do when you're striking. They're going to say, hey, you use your other duties, make it clear you're not going to get paid if you don't do them. And it's like, well, that's the freaking point here, pal. Why don't you pay me? So really just pay your writers, because writers do not do, AI will not do subtle things like having the character in Tom be completely based off of like a certain ideal, you know, in Succession, or he what was the article I saw? They was talking about Succession and how Tom is based off of some allegory or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but like AI's not going to do that. Writers do that. And a writer's room does that. It's the creative process. You need writers on set to help change things. Like, we can talk all day about how actors change stuff, but a lot of them are pretty solid writers too, usually. So, and they deserve to be paid as well if you're going to be writing stuff. But these main writers, they need to get their residuals. They need to be paid fairly. And if we are going to act like Hollywood is going to continue to function without them, it's not. This isn't, you know, the NFL where one wide receiver is complaining he's not getting his money, and it's like, I can fill you, you know, I can bring somebody else in anytime. It's not how that works in Hollywood, so pay your writers. All right, moving on. Speaking of Disney, they are pulling stuff off Hulu and Disney Plus for tax write-off following the HBO thing. I've actually been seeing quite a bit of stuff that a lot of what they're pulling at the moment, they can't write off for taxes. So I'm not exactly sure why they're pulling them, but from my understanding is when HBO pulled off things like Batgirl, it was a lot of things that had not been aired yet, so they could write it off as a tax write-off. But Disney is pulling off things they've sunk a lot of money into that have already come out. So some people are wondering why they're doing this, blah, blah, blah. But to me, this whole we're pulling stuff off our streaming platforms just reminds me how important it is to get physical media and why I still buy it for things that I love. Yep. I mean, I'm looking at it right here. I got a couple things I keep forgetting to put back on the shelf, like Reservoir Dogs and Akira. These are things I would buy because I love these movies. They're phenomenal. It's why I collect manga and things like that, because if something happens and I can't access the apps anymore, they're not on the apps, what am I going to do? So this is why that's the biggest thing this has reminded me of. If you're going to pull them off for tax write-offs, great. Let's send it out on DVD then for a limited time. Let's do something like that, okay? But yeah, Kyle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you about the physical media aspect of it, but when it comes to you mentioning that apparently these projects aren't like tax write-off situations, then my best guess would be is that there is like residual contract or residual deals within like the contracts of the talent that they are paying for, and they decide to remove those so that way they don't have to pay those residuals anymore. I don't know if that's the case.
Things
that's
like
just
that,
my
to save money.
Best guess. And I'm sure that there's people out there that are saying like, oh, well, these things are being pulled off. No one probably watched them, or they didn't have the biggest streaming numbers, or they're bad projects, yada yada. But that's kind of besides the point. Like, even if the majority of people don't like those projects, someone out there still did. And it stinks that they have this thing that they could love, whether people also love it or not, but then have that pulled away from them and have no alternative to being able to see it. No alternative as in like DVD or Blu-ray. So unfortunately, I doubt these projects are going to ever become part of physical media, because they probably don't want to spend that extra money to begin with to release them as physical media if they're already pulling them off of a streaming service because they don't want to spend more money. So it just sucks that we're living in this moment where, yes, obviously, like, it's art, but it's part of a business, but even still, like, the business gets in the way so much that they're removing art, whether the art is good or bad, to where no one can see it anymore. So even though with the likes of these projects I'm looking through with, like, Willow, the Mighty Ducks show, the Jeff Goldblum show, yada yada, not stuff I would watch, but certainly someone else has watched it and has probably liked it, and it just sucks that gets pulled away from them. So yeah,
I know too.
It's now making me realize more and more to support physical media.
I do know too that a lot of this stuff that they're pulling is their original content that was specifically made for the streaming platform. And I know that Bob Iger talked about how they want to be more strategic with how they roll stuff out. And I think it's because, one, they're looking at their own losses and they're saying this is just a money pit, which is what Netflix has been doing for years. But I think everyone's really looking at the problem Netflix has. They released so much original content at once, and it was just garbage after garbage after garbage, that people don't watch Netflix very often anymore. Netflix is not something I tune into that often anymore. If you didn't have Better Call Saul, I wouldn't have been on it much lately. Okay, but
Yeah.
they're trying to be more strategic. I get that. I would assume most of these shows eventually do come back, at least in limited time or, limited releases. Again, physical media, I don't believe physical media is actually that expensive really anymore these days to make, but that it's just a reminder that physical media is the most important. That's why every time I go to a Best Buy, I go to a Target, I go check out the little bits they got left and see if anything catches my eye that I think I should own. But yeah, moving on. Superman casting. Kyle, pull up the article. We all know you're the biggest Superman fan on the planet. What do you know?
Yeah.
What do you got? It's all gonna be Henry Cavill, and if it isn't, it sucks if it's not.
So probably a week ago now, actually, the Hollywood Reporter released an article giving some details and insight into the casting process that's going on with the Superman movie coming out. And so far from them, it looks like the name that they're hearing the most of is David Corenswet for the lead role as Superman. He was in Pearl, the Mia Goth horror movie that came out, and I think it was in like a Netflix show. I think it was in a Netflix show called Hollywood or something that I haven't seen. Like, that's the name that they're hearing the most about. They also mentioned that Jacob Elordi, who was like a name that people were doing like fan castings for, like predictions and that sort of thing, was a name that was being thought of for the role, but sources say that he hasn't submitted himself into the casting process. But other actors that have are Tom Brittney and Andrew Richardson, which I haven't actually had a chance to see any of the work that they've done or like what projects that they're in, but they're British actors whose names are in the ring. The Hollywood Reporter also mentioned that Nicholas Hoult is being eyed for the role of Lex Luthor, but Deadline later came out saying that they're hearing that he's also in the running, for Superman and not for Luthor. So I imagine Nicholas Holt's name is probably being circled for both of those roles, and they're just going to see which one like is the best fit for him. Personally, I would think that it'd be the Lex Luthor role. I see him more as like the bad guy, the guy that you almost want to punch in the face because he pisses you off so much, rather than Superman, at least for myself. And then for the role of Lois Lane, they're hearing names such as Emma Mackey from Sex Education, Rachel Brosnahan from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Phoebe Denever from Bridgerton, and Samara Weaving, who was in Ready or Not and Scream 6. So, Alex, I'll throw it over to you. Any of those names strike your interest? Do you have any other thoughts?
For Lois Lane, I love every option. I love every single option. I think any of those actresses would be great. I haven't seen the lady in Bridgerton much, but
she's good.
She's a good actress. I love the other three. I know everybody, the big fan casting is they want Samara Weaving. I would love her. I also think Rachel and the girl from Sex Education would be phenomenal choices. I think they both would be just excellent. So, in terms of Superman, I do think Nicholas Hoult would be a great Superman. He's a great actor. He can do it. Is he going to be a great Lex Luthor too? Absolutely. I think he'd be great. If it's not any of these other guys, I mean, David Cornsweet looks like Henry Cavill's little brother, so maybe they thought if they go with him, fans would calm down a little bit. I think he'd be great. I haven't really seen much of the other guys' work that are in the role, but I think going with more of an unknown is a better call, or at least somebody that's not as well known. I loved him in Pearl. I thought Pearl was excellent, so I'd be down for whatever. I think that's great. I think James Gunn knows what he's doing. Everybody's back on James Gunn's good side. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll echo your thoughts about the Lois Lane casting, because funny enough, that's the casting that struck me as the most interesting, just because there was more names I was familiar with personally, but also I just think that they're talented actresses as well. Like any one of these, honestly, I wouldn't be upset with seeing, especially, Emma Mackey, who's on the come up, Rachel Brosnahan. I'm really excited to see what her career is going to become post Mrs. Maisel, a show that I need to catch up on this season because I've been hearing nothing but great things about. Yeah,
It's
which is so
phenomenal.
sad. That show's so good. Yeah. Nicholas Hoult, I just visualize him as Lex Luthor more as Superman personally, but it's going to be one of those situations where I'm like, hey, if he's Superman, I'm just going to trust the process and hope that he turns out a great performance for it. But Nicholas Hoult, my favorite performances of his are where he's such a miserable twerp, or he plays an evil guy to where you just want to hate him so much, such as like projects in The Favorite or The Great. There was another show a movie that he was in that does the same thing, but I can't remember now. David Cornsweet for Superman. Honestly, when it comes to Pearl, he didn't leave an impression on me, but I also haven't seen many other of his work anyway.
Role.
Yeah, it was also a small role, and Mia Goth just steals the whole movie. That, it only makes sense. So, yeah, if he does become it, again, I'll trust the process of it, maybe see more of his work, like his Netflix show that he's a part of. But, yeah, not a name that, strikes me as, like, being really excited over, but I also just don't know the actor very well, so I can't say too much about it. But, yeah, it's just the Lois Lane casting that got me the most interested, I would say.
All right. Last topic, start of the Marvel formula. This is a topic I brought up to Kyle not that long ago. And it just stems from where has this Marvel, and when we say Marvel formula, I was thinking about this after seeing Guardians 3, and just that I think Guardians 2 was the start of more humor that undercuts the serious moments, because that has been more of a trend in Marvel lately. And I don't think it happens even in the original 2 Avengers movies that Joss Whedon wrote. I think, obviously the humor is good. I really like the sarcastic humor. I love it in Endgame. I love it in Infinity War. I like it in Civil War. But every now and then it just tends to not work. It feels like the story doesn't get a chance to breathe. That's actually one of the things I do like about the script of Ant-Man Quantumania, is that when it gets serious, the jokes are not really, like, they don't undercut the serious moments. And so I think it works at times. I don't think it's the best script, but I do think it works in terms of the way it handles humor to serious. But what do you think about the Marvel formula there?
In terms of where it stems from, I guess I could see it starting with Guardians. I would say
Guardians
it at least
2,
started...
not Guardians 1. Guardians 1
yes.
does not do it. Guardians 1 is great.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Guardians Volume 2, excuse me. Yeah, you did mention the Avengers movies, and I do wonder if maybe Avengers 2 also could be where it stems from. I know, like, the humor and the chemistry when it came to the first Avengers movie was really, like, one of the highlights at the time. So I wouldn't be shocked if they're telling Joss to, like, double down a little bit more with the Avengers 2 movie, because I know that it didn't quite hit the same for some people as the first one did, but they noticed it being part of their success, so they thought maybe they should lean into it. I could see it being that movie or Volume 2 as well. You talking to me about this subject did make me think of, like, the visual trend that Marvel has been having and where that came from. And I was wanting to mention if maybe you think the same as me, in that it came from the Russo brothers in Winter Soldier. As I think about all the movies leading up to that one, for the most part, each of them felt like visually their own, but still connected story-wise. But I think from Winter Soldier on, and especially because the Russo brothers did so many projects after the fact, but that the visual style and the way that they edit and plan out, like, their action sequences, like, they all can very much feel one and the same in a lot of ways. So, do you agree with that at all?
I'm still kind of confused by your question.
I'm talking about, like, the visual or the cinematography of the movies and how they have, like, the critique of them all feeling the same. For me, I think it started with the Russo brothers in Winter Soldier, because the previous movies all felt visually different, but they were more connected story-wise. And then I feel like from Winter Soldier on, visually they look the same, as well as connecting with their stories at the same time. So I
would say it's more Civil War than Winter Soldier. I think Winter Soldier is so much more down and gritty and dirty that it doesn't necessarily have that same effect. But the big problem, I really think, with the most latest set of movies is the fact that they're using the volume that The Mandalorian made, where it's not just green screen, but it's VR green screen, and it's not being blended well together, or they are using too much green screen. And that could stem for a couple different things too, though, because they use a lot of green screen for Infinity War, and Infinity War and Endgame look amazing. And it's just because they said you have the biggest budget you want, like you can have whatever you want, and the other movies they're not doing that with. So you give Ant-Man and the Wasp another $100 million, make it from $200 to $300 million that it costs, like Infinity War and Endgame, and that movie's going to look a lot better. So I don't know. I wouldn't say that it stems myself from Winter Soldier, because I think Winter Soldier is one of the best looking MCU movies, and I think Civil War tends to be one that people go to more, that they're like, this doesn't look as good. But they've just kind of struggled ever since. And we all knew they were going to struggle after Endgame. Like, where do you go from there? Like, comics reset. They restart. And we're not doing a reset. We're doing like a soft reset, I guess. Oh, hi, Max. So it's interesting how they've kind of looked and felt. I've liked quite a few of the movies. I still really liked Black Panther. I thought Guardians 3 was great. And Guardians 3 I did not think really had the rubbery problem except in one sequence. Outside of that, I thought it looked really good. So, yeah. Any other thoughts from you, my guy?
No, but I like the point that you made about Civil War. I think I would actually buy into that more than what I was thinking with Winter Soldier. But yeah, I think that's all that we needed to cover today.
All right, guys, what you think of today? Comment below, let us know on all your thoughts on all the things we talk about. What'd you think? Go get some merch. And as always, thanks for watching, Mom.
See you guys.